Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video we'll be going over some of the updates that are happening in patch 8.3. It's going to be primarily Blizzard addressing some of the corrupted items and massively nerfing some of them that were way outscaling and doing way too much damage, as a lot of you guys might have noticed. Then general bug fixes as well as a very interesting announcements for the future of any World of Warcraft eSports. But the main question is, does anybody really watch WoW eSports to begin with, and is this going to help it in any way? First of all, let's start with some of the general bug fixes. Blizzard decided to do some bug fixes for the final fight of Ny'alotha with N'Zoth encounter. We also have had a couple things disabled, like cloaks dropping out of certain Battle for Azeroth Seasonal 4 rewards, which is silly when you add a legendary cloak, but still you have cloaks dropping from other pieces of content. I understand maybe a reasoning as to, well, why would Blizzard do this? Maybe it's to allow players that are new to the game, that didn't begin their story questline for the cloak, maybe they want to get some item mode before they get the cloak, to have opportunity to get a cloak from like Mythic Pluses or something. But majority of players that are going to be doing main content, getting the cloak feels like basically a dead item, unless you really love the value of scrapping that item. So hopefully Blizzard addresses all the different avenues, and honestly, if they could shorten the questline for the cloak, let's say for all your alts to skip the whole ordeal so you can get your cloak a lot easier, I think that would make me very happy. We also got some increases to the damage of some of the trinkets in the game, as it looks like some of the trinkets from the last raid are still way too strong. So Blizzard is having to buff every single trinket from Ny'alotha to make sure that it will be the best for concurrent content, which is a good thing. I always found it a little bit weird back in Legion how certain trinkets from certain bosses and mechanics were so strong in terms of the value that they provided to specific specs and classes, that people basically ran them until the end of the expansion, and they got it from like a mid-tier, midway through the expansion dungeons or even raids, and it was ridiculous. They also have done a couple more bug fixes with Heart of Azeroth, which is a good thing because the world first Mythic race for Ny'alotha is happening very soon. It's going to start Tuesday for NA, and EU gets to join Wednesday, and other regions as well on their own reset times. I wouldn't really know if there was different days for like Asian or Pacific or anything like that, but we got ourselves more bug fixes happening before Mythic Ny'alotha, before Mythic Plus season is going to start rewarding much better gear, as well as much better PvP rewards coming in the future. Now let's get into some of the big news. I believe I covered this a little bit offside on another video, but I don't remember ever going into massive detail. So let's talk about the corruption effects that were massively nerfed. You have Infinite Stars, Twisted Appendage, Lash of the Void, and Gushing Wound are getting massive nerfs across the board. If you decided to do any dungeons recently, or maybe some raids, and you saw anyone with any of those corruptions blasting all the way to the top of the charts just by almost corruptions alone, then now you'll be happy to know that those guys won't be able to do it again. Well, at least for the most part, as I feel like Blizzard still wants to keep these corruptions strong in their own ways, but they don't want them to be completely inflated. The problem with these corruptions was they scaled differently. Instead of scaling off of the item that you gotten, as in let's say you got a blue with a low item level and you got this corruption, then the corruption effect is supposed to be, even at max tier, should still be pretty low impact. However, if you got it from a really high item level piece from a very difficult boss and you got the maximum value of that corruption with the highest rank possible, then it should give you the best possible rank and basically the most amount of value. So it worked a little differently. It didn't work off of gear, it worked off of your stats. So certain classes have traits and abilities and procs and trinkets that increase your own primary stats. Agility, intellect, strength all buffed these corruptions. So certain classes like Frost Death Knights and maybe Arms Warriors were able to use traits that increase their strength by an incredible amount. Then this trait started scaling incredibly. It started doing really big damage, and that was a bit too much for Blizzard. So it looks like for the most part they have been fixed, but they still are really strong on gear. So if you're someone who just got one of these corruptions and you're thinking, oh man, do I have to replace it already? For the most part, these corruptions should still be strong in their own way. They were just being a little bit too strong in some occasions. It's interesting to see that Blizzard decided to attack some of these single target corruptions, but a lot of the ones that deal with AoE and deal with percentage health damage have not been really touched just yet. A lot of tanks found that the percentage health corruptions are insanely strong for them. blood DKs, bear druids, any tank that has an incredible amount of health, even maybe stamina pots might even be worth, are able to unload massive amounts of damage and in some cases compete with the other DPS to a certain extent in order to maintain massive amounts of output and overall help out the group a lot more. This is exciting for anybody who is a tank that always wants to do a little bit extra damage, but I wonder if Blizzard is going to start hitting a bunch of these corruptions with nerfs. It's gotten a mixed review from people. I feel like it's still a new system, but it does seem like Blizzard wants to 100% commit into corruptions, at least for this last patch of patch 8.3. Like they even have PvP trinkets that increase your enemy's corruption for a limited amount of time. I think I might make a separate video on that in future, but it looks like corruptions are here to stay and Blizzard is trying to balance them. But it does make you wonder what kind of more tuning can Blizzard add to these corruptions to keep them as balanced as possible for PvE, PvP, any types of content. Finally, Blizzard, in an interesting move, decided to move all of their streaming and esports events to YouTube instead of Twitch. Some of you guys might watch Twitch, some of you don't. I feel like in my audience in particular, I found a lot more people hanging out on the YouTube side than getting people over on Twitch to come check out the channel, or people that watch the channel on YouTube to go check out Twitch. Twitch has been the platform for streaming for the longest time, and Blizzard decided, oh, I guess Activision Blizzard decided to do all the esports on YouTube instead. A lot of people have been wondering why Blizzard decided to make this change. Could it be a financial incentive to go stream on a competitor's platform, or could it be that they're trying to add more audiences in? I'm someone who used to stream on Twitch. I don't anymore. I decided to try YouTube for, I believe it was 3 days or so. 3 days of YouTube is what I called it. And I preferred it because majority of the guys that hang out on videos, all you guys that watch the streams, it just became a lot easier for me to connect with a lot of you. And of course, Blizzard has a pretty big audience when it comes to the YouTube side with all the different trailers that are getting released on the World of Warcraft channel. But on Twitch side, they do all these events for all the esports stuff, and Twitch is generally the better or the more popular option for purely live streaming. But I wonder if this could potentially bring in more people, more attention, and more eyeballs to some of their esports events. First of all, I'm glad that Blizzard continues to try to, make esports a thing. The idea of seeing some of my favorite games from my favorite company that I've been playing games for as long as I have, to see them continue to try through thick and thin to make these, I guess, esports events relevant and bring more attention to them and maybe bring in more competitors. I like stuff like this on paper. It hasn't been perfect in the past and it's still far from perfect. They're still evolving, they're still trying to find things to do. But I like being able to watch MDIs where people do dungeons competitively, then jump into arenas where people are trying to compete in arenas competitively. I think they should expand to more like one-on-one duels maybe, or maybe some other events like RBGs, or maybe take one of the brawls, one of the more popular brawls that people enjoy playing, like the Deep 6 BG, 6 versus 6, teams trying to, fight over the flag, fight over the orbs in Kotmogu, fight over other objectives like Silver Sharp Mines. I think something like this could be very, very interesting to watch and see, and I would love for Blizzard to expand more when it comes to the WoW and the competitive side. I mean, the world first race for every new raid as of BFA has been very exciting, even though BFA hasn't been, I would say, the strongest expansion in the lineup. The old Dio race was exciting. The Dazara lore race with Jaina was exciting. I've seen so many people watch Ajara, and I believe Neolotha is going to be just as hyped. So I feel like there's so much potential to it. But in the end, let me just pass this off to you guys. What are your thoughts about Blizzard moving to YouTube instead of Twitch for some other esports events? Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.